They precipitated one of the biggest political scandals in San Diego's modern history when they publicly disclosed sexual misconduct allegations against Mayor Bob Filner back in July. Since then, San Diegans watched their mayor apologize, heard from scores of women he allegedly harassed, and finally saw Filner resign in a defiant speech just 1 month ago. Former Councilwoman Donna Frye and attorneys Briggs and Gonzalez join me now on the events leading up to their decision to go public and what they think about San Diego's political future. Take me back to the genesis of this scandal. Donna, you've known Bob Filner, a former congressman, a fellow Democrat, for years. You actually took a job with him when he was first elected mayor and then left. When did you first hear that he may have sexually harassed a woman?
It was during the time that I was employed in the mayor's office, and it would have been before April of this year. And at that point, I didn't have any confirmation, but the evidence became very clear after Irene McCormick left.
Did you hear from an actual woman, or did you hear it from a third party?
Most of the information I had was from a third party. It was from people, allegations, rumors, but at one point I heard it from the person directly.
And what did you do with the information? Did you ever go to the city's equivalent of a human resources department to let them know?
No. And the reason I didn't is I didn't trust the process, and the person that shared the information with me did not want to do anything and did not want me to do anything. And it was my belief that it was not my story to tell without the woman's permission, and she was not willing to go public at that time, and has not gone public yet.
What do you mean by you not trusting the process? I
don't trust the process where the process essentially is one set up and controlled by the person that we would be making the charge against. It did not seem there was enough protection for the woman. The woman was not willing to come forward, and it was my belief that anything I could do to help her, I would do, but until she wanted to say something or do something about it, there wasn't a lot I could do without her permission, and I would not move forward. However, as time progressed, I received more information, and once I had the clear evidence and someone willing to speak and go forward, I acted on it.
Marco and Corey, you both have had experience with the city. You're lawyers in this region. How did you get involved in this story?
Well, I was working on the Sunroad scandal on behalf of some watchdog organizations, and on Father's Day I had a very unpleasant conversation with the mayor in which he essentially confirmed that he has been abusing his power and holding up development projects illegally because he's trying to further his agenda. I wasn't going to have any part of it. And after that, I called Marco and Donna to let them know that I had a problem with the mayor, and it was pretty serious. And at that time, they said, well, we've got a problem too. We need to sit down and chat.
Marco, you said that at one point you met with the mayor, and it became clear to you that his behavior, his treatment of women would not change. What led you to that point?
So in late June, when Irene McCormick had approached Donna and indicated some of the facts that we now know, that we have now disclosed, everyone has talked about, the Filner headlock, the Filner dance, those types of patterns, not only that she had experienced, but that she had seen being his staff member and being at events. Donna asked Irene if she had counsel, and she didn't, and Donna called me up and said, will you talk to Irene? You know, I knew who Irene was vaguely from her work at the port, but I'd never actually interacted with her. And she called me up, came up and met with me at my office, and that began what would be a repeated occurrence. Every time that I spoke to a woman for the first time about it, it was incredibly powerful and really hurtful to hear how Bob had really confirmed some of the suspicions. So to respond to the problems with Irene, as her attorney, I went down to meet with Bob and actually asked Donna to come down with me. I was a little worried meeting with Bob alone because, I mean, it's Bob. It's the mayor of the city. You know, in some ways feeling a little of that same tension that these women must have felt going to talk to one of the most powerful people in the city about something very, very touchy. That's a bad pun, but, you know, it was probably the heaviest meeting in preparation that I've had in 15 years of practicing law. And I sat down with Bob and Donna, and what I thought could be a 5-minute conversation turned into a 2-hour conversation. And I laid out for Bob the problem that he was facing, that not just Irene, but multiple women were being harassed and were uncomfortable with his pattern of behavior. And at that time, I laid out a course of action for him to undertake, to seek therapy, both psychologically and physically, to re-engage with his staff and apologize for the abusive behavior, both sexually and otherwise, and to make clear that sexual harassment wasn't going to occur, on his watch. And he indicated at the conclusion of that meeting, after really trying to explain away his behavior a number of times, that he would indeed, I wouldn't say comply, but that he would indeed take these steps to rectify some of the harm that he'd caused. And I left that meeting personally, Donna disagrees with this, but I was hopeful. I supported the guy. I thought redemption, was the goal. And I walked away just kind of feeling like I was in the twilight zone, that here the mayor had essentially admitted to a lot of behaviors that were inappropriate for a mayor, but he also said he would fix things.
So what changed your mind about that?
Well, again, walking out, Donna didn't necessarily agree with me after that meeting, and we started talking a lot about it. And I sent the mayor an email and I said, here are the list of things that you agreed in our discussion to do, and here are some timelines to do them, and let me know that you got this and that you're still thinking you're going to do it. And I waited and I got nothing.
When and why did you make the decision to take these allegations public?
Well, actually, we didn't make the decision to make them public. We called on him to resign on July 9th, and we all did so privately. The press called me on Wednesday morning and let me know that they had my letter. So somebody leaked it to the press. And it was over the course of July 10th, when Donna's letter and Marco's letter became public as well, that we decided the public's entitled to know what motivated us to write those letters. We weren't wanting to go public with lurid details. We wrote private letters to Bob saying, here are our concerns. We've talked to you about them. You know what we're talking about. Now it's time to do the right thing. We didn't decide to make this public.
But we have to march back to the facts that were going on at the time. We were meeting, the three of us, and discussing whether we would call for resignation. And that same afternoon, the afternoon that we sent our letters on the 9th, we saw a tweet that there were other people, iNews Service, perhaps KPBS, that were investigating some issues regarding Bob and sexual harassment. Well, a high-level official and sexual harassment. And a driving issue for us is, we're Democrats who now have knowledge that our highest leader in the city is violating community standards. What does it mean if the Republicans find this out? And we knew that they were trying to find out dirt on Bob. But what does it mean if the scandal breaks from their end or even from the news end? We know, and we have an obligation to do something about it, just as we would if it was a Republican in office or anyone else. And so that drove us too.
So this story breaks. On Thursday, you hold a press conference and you call on the mayor, a man whom you supported, the first Democrat mayor to be elected in the city of San Diego in 2 decades. You face the cameras, you call on him to resign. What was that like for you, Donna?
It was one of the worst experiences of my life. I had such great hope and great faith in Bob Filner, and I believed that he was going to make this a better city and bring in people that had previously been ignored and not ever considered their issues, that finally there was someone that was going to take this city forward and make it a much more inclusive city. Unfortunately, that was never going to happen, not just because of Bob's sexual harassment, but because he had no clue how to treat his office and how to treat the public. He continued to abuse his power, but particularly with women.
After you held that press conference, there was a 2-week window between the time you brought the allegations to the surface publicly and the time that the actual accusers came forward, and you faced a lot of criticism for not, bringing these allegations to the surface with the accusers. What did you make of that criticism?
I didn't have time to focus on the criticism, frankly, because coming out of that first press conference, literally within minutes of leaving the podium, Corey's and my phones were blowing up. We had women calling us either saying, "Oh my God, thank you, that happened to me, I don't want to tell you my name," or saying, I'm willing to be a part of the narrative. I have a story to tell. And, it was really emotional for us to go out on that day and knowing the gravity of what we were accusing Bob of doing and calling for his resignation, but then to come out of that and literally within 24 hours have another 12, 14 women call us and say, "Oh my God, that happened to me too," or not so much that happened to me too, but Filner's a problem in my life as well. It was incredibly difficult to try to corral then all of that information as it was coming in and to really figure out what our next move was, and that became creating the narratives that would become public at the second press conference.
So Corey, the women eventually spoke. Bob Filner apologized. He sought therapy. He entered settlement negotiations to leave. He resigned in a defiant speech. What did you make of the speech?
For the first 2 minutes, I was a little teary. For the rest of it, I was pretty pissed off because this guy is trying to make it out to be everybody else's fault. And a classic symptom of someone who is a serial power abuser is blaming everybody else for his own downfall. And that's what, after the 2-minute mark, that's all he could do is talk about lynchings. That's offensive. To talk about coups, that's offensive. What we did as members of the community who have spent a lifetime, a professional lifetime, standing up for core community values, regardless of party. I'm not a Democrat. Regardless of party, there's transparency in government. There's respect toward all viewpoints and people, the basics. And he was violating that on a regular basis.
Donna, there's been a backlash of sorts from some segments in the community who believe that these harassment allegations were part of a well-orchestrated effort to oust Bob Filner from office because he was a guy who championed the causes of the common man, of neighborhoods, and he stood up to groups like businesses and developers who were perceived to have dominated City Hall for years. What do you make of those allegations?
I understand where people are coming from. I understand their disappointment, their frustration, and that we finally get someone in that is supposed to represent the entire community and the things that we all care about and have been fighting for, and that opportunity was lost. I'm not particularly sympathetic to the conspiracy theorists because they're absurd. Anybody that knows me, that knows Marco, that knows Corey, knows full well that we are not part of any conspiracy, that what we found in Bob Filner was a person who was not fit to lead the city because he did not know how to treat people, he abused his power, and he sexually harassed women. So I think they need to kind of come to grips with reality.
Marco, do you have anything to add?
Nothing about this changes the core values that I've been fighting for my whole career. And, it makes me very sad. I sat with Bob for 2 hours at the beginning of this, and I had hope. I had hope because of Bronwyn being in his life. I had hope that he would see the implications to the movement of this all going public. But I left feeling like this is a sick man. And frankly, when he stood up at that dais and tendered that so-called resignation speech, I started off like Corey, very, very sympathetic that, okay, it's sad, but it's over, and he gets it. And by the end, I was screaming at the television. I was so frustrated that this man had such an opportunity to leave with grace and perhaps have some of his legacy intact, and he sacrificed it yet again. He didn't see the forest for the trees.
Corey, we're in the middle of a special mayoral election after Bob Filner's resignation. Who do you think, who among the candidates shares Filner's progressive agenda?
I have no idea. I don't. Actually, that's not true. A couple of the candidates do. I think that Bruce Coons and David Alvarez share many of those views. And I say that only because I've seen them in action. There are others who say that they share those views too. I just haven't seen them in action acting on those values. So if you're asking me who I think it'll be, I have no idea. If you're asking me who I think is a progressive like Bob in terms of the agenda, I think Bruce and David are closest.
And we've got to leave it there. Corey Briggs, Donna Frye, Marco Gonzalez, thanks so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.